Round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Leafs and the Bruins is going to Game 6 as the Leafs stay alive, making the series 3-2 after Game 5. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria. I talk all things Toronto sports from Scotland, and today we're talking about Game 5. Game 5, Leafs versus Bruins. This was a do or die game for the Leafs. If they didn't win last night, their playoff hopes were over. And given how weak they've looked compared to Boston so far in this series, it was highly likely that last night would have been the last game of the year for them. Honestly, I think it was their best game of this series so far. It wasn't off to a very promising start for Leafs fans before the game, with the announcement that Austin Matthews would not play in Game 5 due to an undisclosed illness. There's definitely something ongoing with Matthews' health, and I'm really concerned about it. I really am concerned for him because there's definitely something that's really ongoing, and hopefully it's something that can sort itself out, not just so that he can get back playing, but because players are people too, and I hate to see anybody struggling with their health. So concerned for Austin as a person, but also concerned for the impact that it has on the team. That leaves arguably the biggest gap that you could in this Leafs team. The other big change is that Joseph Woll was in net rather than Samsonov, which I am so glad. I really was confused why that decision wasn't made in Game 4. I ideally would have liked to have seen Woll in, and I do think that Samsonov, while not the entire issue, I think changing something up was necessary, and one of the few things that you can control is changing up your goaltender. Joseph Woll has really shown that he can be an effective netminder despite him being so young. He's very composed, he's very calm. I really like the way that he looks, and I think sometimes the players feel comfortable with him in net there. So I was glad to see him get the start, and I was really impressed with how he performed last night. Going into period 1, straight away that Domi, Bertuzzi and Marner line looked really strong from the off. Of course, that line had been changed up with the fact that Matthews was not playing last night. They put on some really good pressure, they had some really good chances, they just looked really good. And then the Leafs narrowly avoid a too many men call. You need to be really disciplined with those too many men calls, not get them at all. There's no excuse for them at this stage. It's an easily avoidable thing, but luckily the Leafs did avoid it. And with 14:27 left in the first period, Jake McCabe shoots through some traffic, long shot right off the face-off, and he puts the Leafs in the lead. This was McCabe's first playoff goal. It was really good. I really liked it. The Leafs needed an early goal in this game. I think that was really vital, and they straight away were the team with the better pressure by far. They were the ones keeping it in their offensive zone. They just were off to a really strong start. However, getting a lead is one thing, holding a lead is a whole other issue, and throughout all Bruins and Leafs games in this year, the Leafs have only held a lead for 12 minutes out of all of those games. So even with a lead, it was still concerning. But the Leafs were really winning the face-offs last night. Domi was an absolute machine with the face-offs. He was just winning all of them in the first period. All of them that he was facing, he was just so good. Winning face-offs is definitely an underrated thing, because at the end of the day, that goal the Leafs got came right off the face-off. So if you don't win that face-off, if you don't perform well there, you're not getting the goal out of it. I think face-off wins are an underappreciated stat in hockey. In addition to this, the Bruins only had one shot within the first 11 minutes of the game, which is really low for this Bruins team that really come out all guns blazing. The Bruins honestly did not look that good, and Boston have been by far the better team for the majority of this series, but in that first period last night, the Bruins did not look great at all, and on their just second shot on net, they got some real puck luck, and Frederick gets a goal and they tie the game up, and it came absolutely out of nowhere because, to be honest, Boston had not been performing well. That was their second shot on target, and it went in. They just got a really lucky bounce. I think the puck hit Maroon's skate, and they got lucky. Hockey's like that though. that can happen to any team where you either get puck luck or you don't, and Boston definitely did there because it came completely out of nowhere. They didn't even look like they were getting any scoring chance anytime soon because they didn't look that great, but they got the luck, it went in. That's just how the game of hockey works. The Leafs then went on the power play. This was the first penalty of the game. Bertuzzi was cross-checked and they went on the power play, but the Leafs still didn't really make much use. It's still definitely, their special teams are a weakness, and I feel like I'm repeating myself in every single video, but the Leafs definitely don't make the most of their power plays. They have had a ridiculous amount of power play opportunities in this playoff series and they just don't capitalise on them. And even last night, despite the fact they were really good, they still didn't make the most of them, and it's still an area that's definitely a weakness. However, Boston's penalty kill is really good and Boston were really just shutting them down, and the Leafs did get a couple of chances. It's not like they were completely cleared out of the zone, but it still wasn't the best. And there was a point in the first period where Domi was 8 for 8 on face-offs. Crazy. The Leafs outshot the Bruins 12-2 in that first period. So frustrating that Boston got a goal out of those two shots, but it did show that the Leafs were really, really fighting for it last night. They were playing so well, and I felt really comfortable with the way they were playing. Going into period 2, there was a penalty against the Leafs. Nylander was called for a trip. The Leafs managed to kill that off, and then the Leafs went on the power play. There was an interference call on Maroon, and throughout the second period, the Leafs did outplay Boston, but Boston, I think, looked much better than they did in their first period. Wall made an incredible stop with just 13 minutes left, and there was good and bad from both teams, to be completely honest. Wall made another great save with around 7.5 minutes left in the second. I don't think you can deny that Wall really kept the Leafs in that game. Wall was a game changer last night for the Leafs, and so while it's frustrating that he wasn't put in for game 4, at least when it really mattered, he really stepped up to the mark. Matthew Knies had looked strong all night. I think Matthew Knies has been one of the standouts of this entire playoff series for me, but he did look really good last night, which of course was great foreshadowing for what would happen later in the game. With 2 minutes 55 left in the second period, the Leafs had 10 minutes of offensive zone time, whereas Boston only had 5 minutes 42, so that sort of encapsulates how well the Leafs were playing compared to Boston last night, which was good to see because Leafs have been dominated for the majority of this series. In the last minute of the second period, the Leafs were so close to getting the puck over the line and actually went to a review, but it didn't ultimately cross the line. But it's always good to review things like that because it's hard when the goalie's on top of it and you can't really see where the puck went. But it did not cross, but it was always worth a look. And then just right at the end of the second period as well, the Leafs went on the power play. Marchand got put in the box, but then I think he got taken back out the box, I believe, and someone else was put in, which is only notable because Marchand hasn't got any penalties up until this point, which is slightly insane when you consider how he is as a player. Absolutely ridiculous that he hadn't had a single penalty called on him all series long. Anyway, going to period 3, the Leafs power play of course carries over. Still wasn't fantastic. Their power play is definitely not their strong suit, and it's a shame to see them really putting all these power plays to waste when they really could have, you know, taken the lead on them. If the Leafs power play had been better, I think this round would look a little bit different than it does right now. So it's a real shame that they haven't found their stride in that. And it's definitely something that if they want to win this round, and especially if they want to progress any further, they're going to have to work on, because to be given the opportunity to have a man advantage and you're not getting anything from it is just such a waste. 15 minutes left in the game and Marchand came so close to scoring, so close. I really thought it was going in, but the net was wide open. It was wide open, but luckily he missed, so the Leafs did get a little bit lucky there because there was plenty of room for him to score on, but he missed, thank God. Then, talking to Marchand, in the penalty box, Marchand got a penalty. It was for roughing against Holmberg, and of course Holmberg also got put in the box, but a Marchand penalty, a rare sighting. And I'm sorry not to keep talking about Marchand, but we have to talk about that knock over by the ref. I don't know who he thought was, you know, taking him down there, but he looked so shocked when he realised that it was one of the officials. Definitely the funny moment of the game for me. Then there's 4-on-4 hockey played, and it was really back and forth. Nobody was going to score. And then obviously when you're heading to overtime, neither team wants to make a mistake at that point, because the opportunity to regroup and then to go out into overtime is definitely better than doing something silly and conceding right at the end of the third. So I think both teams were keeping it pretty tight and nobody was scoring on that. And so to overtime we go. And I was not excited because I was really tired by this point and I just wanted to go to bed, if I'm completely honest. Luckily though, I did not have to stay up too much later. I was so concerned it was going to go to like double or triple overtime, because that is a European NHL fan's worst nightmare, because you're not getting to bed if that happens. Going into overtime, Wall again was the complete difference maker in this. He really kept Boston out. Boston had some really great chances. It was just up and down the ice, but Boston had some really great looks, and Wall kept the Leafs in it for sure. That man, oh, I wish they'd had him in game 4. I really do. Then with still 17 minutes 34 left in that overtime period, Matthew Knies scores off of Tavares and the Leafs stay alive. And I don't want to hear any more Tavares hatred, because I feel like I'm constantly just sticking up for this man, because I just don't understand why people dislike John Tavares so much. I think he performs so well given his age, and I do think he is paid far too much, but I'm almost certain that he's going to take a pay cut very soon. There's no way he's leaving Toronto when his family and him are so happy and settled in the city. He is going to take a drastic pay cut to stay on the Leafs, and then I think he'll be playing exactly to what he's worth. Ultimately, it's not his fault that he is still on the same contract and he's getting older. That's what happens when you sign players on a certain length of contract and on a certain amount of money. That is what happens, and it's not his fault. I think it's the fact that I know he'll be getting paid less very soon that makes him still an ideal player for me. I would hate to see John Tavares go anywhere else. I love him. I think he comes in so clutch. He really does. People have very short memories. He was the one that scored the overtime winner last year that got the Leafs to the second round. This game was a must win, and that goal that Knies scored came right off Tavares, and he was a real playmaker for that. So I don't want to hear any Tavares slander. I'm sick of it. So the Leafs are still in it. Their playoff dreams stay just alive. It's going to game 6 on Thursday, 8 PM in Toronto. They love the 8 PM start times. I do not. Knies, after the game, when interviewed, said that everyone stepped up and played their role, which is completely accurate. That was a really well put together team last night. And it's funny that Austin Matthews wasn't there when he's the best player on the team. I do wonder though, the other game that Leafs were really good in was in game 2, when Austin literally carried the team on his back, and it was almost like because they didn't have that to rely on last night, it felt like everybody really stepped up to the mark. And I don't really have any severe criticism to say of any player last night. I thought they performed really well. The standout though, Joseph Woll. Joseph Woll absolutely won the Leafs that game, and they have to give him credit for that win and for keeping them alive. So that's all from me today, guys. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of game 5? What do you think game 6 is going to be like? Are we going to get another game 7 at TD Gardens, and are we as fans able to cope with that? Let me know your thoughts down below. If you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe for lots more videos like this, and I'll be back soon with more Toronto sports chats from across the pond. Bye guys.
Quiet voices in the night. Time is running out of sight. A lonely wind is passing by. Tries to carry all the whispers that it finds. The walls are listening.